Hey everybody, it's Josh here. Welcome to interview number 5 of my series, Scaling Your Divi Web Design Business. In this chat, I got to talk with David Blackmon, who is one of the owners of Aspen Grove Studios and of the recently merged Divi space, which if you're in the Divi community, you probably know of. They have some of the best plugins in the market for Divi websites, and they're also one of the top marketplaces, and they're just pumping out products, and their team is growing like crazy. So we talk about how he got started, the origin of those businesses and how they merged, and now how they're managing a massive team of not local people and not national people, but global people. So they have a team that is global, and they have a lot of people now with so much traffic with their support and products and things like that. They have a very refined system, and we talk about how they manage communication, how they do product support, how they centralize all of that information, again, with a team that's global. It's fascinating to me to be able to work with people across different time zones and things like that. So we go in a lot of great detail. He gives us a lot of good practical advice, but also some kind of heads up and some warning on mistakes and lessons that he's learned when it comes to hiring people in different countries and things like that. So it was a great chat. I can't wait for you to hear this and get some really good value. And more importantly, can't wait to hear how it helps your Divi business as well. David, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us today.
Hey, you're welcome, Josh. Thanks for having me, my friend.
So you manage and run like 13 businesses. Why don't you give us a snapshot of, where you're at right now and kind of what you oversee with all your businesses?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, we have Aspen Grove Studios, which is I guess you could call it kind of our main company. I don't want to call it the parent company because I haven't really, maybe I should do it because of WordPress, parent-child relationship, and themes and Divi and all that stuff. So Aspen Grove Studios is a web development firm. We started a couple of years ago, about 2.5 years ago, Corey Jenkins and I, and we do custom WordPress web development. We started creating products specifically for the Divi theme from Elegant Themes. And we kind of just expanded, and it kind of went out from there. This year in 2017, we acquired Divi Space, which is another property in the Divi niche industry, who was founded by S.J. James. And so we run that. We have a product side of our business, and we have a client-facing side of our business as well. So we will be adding a third component to the mix in 2018. We just finished negotiations for acquiring another WordPress business. So it's exciting times.
Awesome. So we'll get into how you're managing the teams and all that good stuff. But to kind of backtrack, when you started Aspen Grove Studios, did you have every intention of scaling that from the get-go, or did you just kind of go for it and see where it would go?
Aspen Grove Studios, I did. Maybe we need to backtrack a little bit further for my own personal journey.
Sure.
I've only been doing WordPress for about a little over 4 years. Started in September of 2013 officially. And Aspen Grove Studios came about a year and a half later. So at that, to answer the question for me personally, my own business, I had no intention, I actually thought the opposite. If you would have told me 2 years from when I started my original company, Davcom Digital, which was a play on David and communication. I don't know why I went with Davcom, but sounded great at the time. I needed a Twitter handle.
There you go.
And so I had no intention of scaling that. I enjoyed and loved working with WordPress, this new thing that I had found. And I thought, wow, I can make a living with this. Why not try to just build websites for clients? Solo person, nobody on my team. And, but when we formed Aspen Grove Studios, you better believe I had every intention to scale that business.
Oh, okay.
So, and we can talk more about it, as we go along and stuff, and I'll kind of share my journey and what that looked like and stuff when I knew that scaling the business was the way to go and stuff.
Well, that's a good segue to really my first big question is, why did you want to scale from the get-go? Did you want to free yourself up to do what you do best, or, what were your reasons for wanting to scale that?
I guess I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I love building businesses. Before I got into web design and web development, WordPress business, I had a sales and marketing company in the newspaper industry, totally unrelated. And the internet coincidentally killed that business in 2009, and I had to basically reinvent myself.
Wow.
I went to work for a Fortune 500 company, helped them launch a digital product. It was called Deal Chicken. It was Gannett. Gannett owns USA Today, 58 other newspapers around the country, a big media company, Fortune 500. And they wanted to launch this daily deal program because Groupon and Living Social was really hot at the time, So I worked for them for 3 years. I helped launch that program for them in South Louisiana. And I just wasn't happy, So I think, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I realized that in going back to work for somebody, 8 to 5, punching the clock, and I hadn't done that since I was in my 20s, and I absolutely hated it.
Wow,
so,
okay.
When I had an opportunity that we'll talk about later on, I just, I think I just love building businesses. I've realized this, hindsight's 2020. So, being an entrepreneur when I was young, you're much younger than I am. I'll turn 50 in a couple of weeks. And, back when I was young, I didn't know that it was entrepreneurship that was going on inside of me, that I just had this desire to build and take leaps of faith and do things. Back then, people looked at, you got a job for 50 years, you bought a house, you raised a family, you did what everybody else did. And I was always outside the box. I mean, people looked at me as just like an alien. I'd come up with ideas and stuff, and they were like, dude, just go get a job. They looked at entrepreneurship as an unemployed, lazy bum.
Yeah,
basically.
it seems like the last decade or so that's changed dramatically.
Oh, massively changed.
Yeah, and that's funny because I relate to you in so many ways, particularly with that. Because I remember, so I'm a drummer, and I remember, back in like middle school, looking at the music, and I was terrible at reading music, and internally I was always like, this isn't the best way to play this beat. I can do it so much better if I just have my own thing. And now that's like really played out in my life. And to your point, yeah, I haven't really had a normal 9-to-5 job aside from I was a cabinet maker for a tour bus customizing shop. I've never had a desktop job, but yeah, I couldn't imagine, I just couldn't do it now, going back to 8 to 4 and 9 to 5. I could not do it after being freelance.
Well, when you have kids and you got to put food on the table and stuff, and you do what you got to do. And
Sure.
I did that for 3 years, and I think what it did for me was it just reinforced the fact that I've always had this mentality of, why would I want to make someone else wealthy when I can try to make my own self wealthy and be successful? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't want to sound shallow or anything, but I felt like if I was going to work as hard as I was going to work, why not do it for myself? And
that's a very valid point, David. And I have web developer friends, a couple here in Columbus, that have mentioned, who have helped me get into web design and years ago. And now they're like, man, I'm kind of jealous that you're doing your own thing. I'm working for this huge company, this big agency, but I'm not seeing barely anything. They're doing all this work. And obviously, you own your own business. It has a whole other set of obstacles that we'll go into. But I think that's very valid. You get more satisfaction from start to finish completing something, if it's your thing.
I've got a friend of mine who called me 2 nights ago wanting some advice. And, I think her company did $40 million last year. And they're, SEO, inbound marketing company for the automobile industry.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, she's one of the wizards that, what it's like being a web developer, doing the dance with page one of Google and getting your clients or yourself ranked and what really goes into that. And she is very good at it. And she's like, David, I just realized, I'm we did 40 million this year, and I made $40,000.
Wow.
And I'm a large part of the reason why they made that money, and she's like, what should I do? Well, when you call the crazy entrepreneur, so yeah, it's like I over the last few years have really tried to encourage people to not be afraid to pursue something that they want to do, because I really believe that in this day and age with the online and the internet, you can make money doing anything, because if you have a passion about it, there are other people around the world who have that same passion, and they may want to learn from you, or pay you to help them along, or whatever it is. There's ways to make money.
Let me ask you this, David. So for people who are in that position, who are making just a small chunk of a bigger agency or something like that, and they're thinking about doing their own thing, do you think that everyone has an entrepreneur in them, or do you think that it's best suited for a certain type of personality?
I do think it takes a certain type of personality. It takes somebody who, doesn't, I don't want to use the word fear. I think, I do think that it is better suited for certain types of personalities as opposed, because security is important to most people. Health insurance is important to most people. And let me tell you, those things cost a lot of money when you're outside of a company. When you're not when you're not in a group policy and you're on your own, you realize a whole other side of things. You come to appreciate employers from a different perspective.
Yes, I'm going through that right now, man. Yep,
yeah,
totally.
Yeah, when you become an entrepreneur and stuff. Yeah. So I definitely think that it takes a certain type of personality, but do I think that non-entrepreneurial spirited people can be successful as an entrepreneur? Absolutely.
Nice.
I think that they can, they need to go a little bit different track probably than someone like yourself or me. They may need to go the side hustle route and build up, revenue and a solid base before they totally jump off the cliff. Whereas me, I'm a cliff jumper. It's like, let's go. Yeah, and we'll eat peanut butter.
I totally ditto that statement, because I think there are people who are just entrepreneurial, wired, which are probably like you and myself. But I think we're probably similar, and most people who are the owner of a business have to be cool with two things: failure and risk. And most people in corporate America or a stable job are not going to be cool with those two things, or they're going to be very uncomfortable. And I've kind of realized, because a lot of my personal family, a lot of them are, when I kind of started doing my own thing, they were so worried about my finances, and they were so worried. And you're either chasing two things, security or freedom. And either one is fine. I much rather freedom. I get it that, like, there has been times where we've been late on our mortgage where I'm like, I don't know how we're going to pay everything next month, but it always ends up working out. And, now that I'm scaling the business, we're getting past those kind of initial struggles. But yeah, I think it's a good balance, because, and maybe we can talk about this next, but when you're working with people, you can probably align yourself with people who are a little bit different than you that work together. Like, if I'm going to hire somebody, I probably want to hire somebody who's more interested in maybe security, or more interested in doing the work, as opposed to, taking all the responsibility of doing something their own. So is that kind of how you started building your team? Did you start aligning yourself with people who complimented you?
Well, it was a happy accident, Josh. I guess it was May of 2014. The first Divi group came to be, and I just happened to read a blog on elegant themes one day, and the person who started that Facebook group posted in the comments, "Hey, I started a new Facebook group. If you want to join, we can talk about Divi and maybe help each other out and stuff." So I was one of the first. I might have been the first 10 people. I know I was first 20 people. So it was like very small, and we were like all excited with this new tool that WordPress came out with called Divi. And it was awesome, and we just loved it. And we went in to help. So, Facebook is global, and Facebook groups, as you know, are global and international as well. Lots of different variety, all walks of life, from professional web developers to do-it-yourselfers to everything. And as we started helping each other, you get to know people. You get to see people who comment on, being helpful and stuff and commenting and stuff. And me being part of an entrepreneur, I think, is we're curious people. We want to know how other people do their deal. So like we're doing an interview today. We're going to hopefully help some people, by sharing our experience of what's worked for us and what hasn't worked for us. Well, out of curiosity, I met this one person, Kalyan was his name, and he was from India. And I knew nothing at this time about exchange rates, global currencies, what web development cost in another country. I had no clue. I was generally curious. So I just asked a simple question. Hey, so what does it cost to build websites in your country? And he's like, well, why don't you show me a couple of websites that you built, and I'll let you know what we would charge for them over here, and I was very naive to the way that, those types of entrepreneurs work in Facebook groups.
Gotcha.
I was just very innocent, actually, and just curious. And so I showed him the last couple of websites that I had built. I was super proud of. I'd done them myself. I built them in Divi. And, I think one of them cost $4,000 for a local client. Another one cost like $3,500 for a local client, which is, nothing out of this world expensive, just normal web development costs in the U.S. Well, he came back and he said, well, in my country, he said, we would build that for, it would cost $400 US dollars. And my jaw hit the table. And I was like, what? He said, well, for you, if you wanted me to build it for you, I would do it for $300. And I couldn't believe it. I was like looking at a website that I just charged $4,000, which was probably low for what I could have charged him, because I was new and scared to ask for the money that really needed to be asked.
So you got the project, and then you're hiring it out. You're in the process of getting it.
Well, I built it myself.
Okay.
And at this point, I was just curious.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what I did was, I'll never forget it. This was in late July of 2014, and he told me his prices, and I about just fell on the floor, and I was like, well, do you have any time? My first question was, how busy is your schedule? Do you need any work? And I knew this guy was talented. I knew that he knew what he was doing, because I had been watching him help many people in the Facebook group. In the Facebook group,
okay.
Yeah, and he would, if there was a CSS issue, he would answer it. If there was a PHP issue, he would answer it. And he was just very, very helpful and stuff. And so, the first 2 weeks of August every year, I take all the kids, we go to the beach, it's family time before school starts, one last hurrah of the summer. And I had 2 web projects slated to start when I got back from vacation. And, I said, well, what the heck, let me give this a shot. So I said, well, I've got this one web project. I'm going on vacation, but here's the scope. Here's the details. Here's what needs to be built and stuff. And would you like to start it? And he said, sure. And I turned the project over to him. I went to the beach, and, halfway through my vacation, he was done. I mean, I was on the beach, $4,000 from the client, $300 to him, and the website was built.
Wow.
And I was like, it changed my entire mindset and my business, so I gave him the second project, and before I got home, he had completed 2 web projects in 2 weeks. And, obviously you can do the math, what my net was on my cost. And I hired him instantly full time. I said, hey,
Yeah, you're looking at what, like a 90% profit margin, maybe more than
massive.
that. Yeah.
So what it allowed me to do was it allowed me to take that money and start investing it in the company and hiring other people and stuff. And it just taught me, it allowed me to really scale my business much faster than I could have ever scaled it staying in the U.S.
Gotcha.
I could have never afforded to hire somebody. And as a solo person building websites, a human being has only so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
There's only so much they can get done in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you double that and you've got two people, you all of a sudden it's exponential, and the amount of output that you can put out in that 24 hours is much better. So much more. Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of where my mind went. And,
so that's a good experience working overseas. I know you had told me previously about, in regards to currency, a situation where you paid somebody much more than, is typical for that kind of project. Can you kind of allude to that? Because I think that's probably a good heads up for people working remotely. Like, you should check to see what the proper currency is, like you did there. Was that after, that good experience? Was that after the bad one?
Yeah, this person ended up working with me for a couple of years. And, what I learned over, in the last 3 years of working internationally is that it really is important for you to, know the global economy. Mm-hmm. So for example, here in the U.S., what might not be a lot of money to us, like obviously the $300 per website was very little money for us here in the U.S. comparative to what we actually get for, our services. And I hope I hope no clients are watching this. We don't want you to start outsourcing your work overseas. Stay right here in the U.S. Right. Segue, and sorry, but I did learn a lot, and it's really important for you to understand what the cost of living is in that country and how it compares to the U.S. dollar, because initially I was conflicted. I had a lot of guilt, my own personal, and it was my own personal baggage. It had nothing to do with Callion. Callion was super happy.
Okay.
He was stoked. He had steady work. He was making an upper class income in his country, and he was pumped. He was ready to come to work every day. And me, my own internal struggles. Oh, I need to pay him more, man. I'm making so much more. And, so I was really naive to, a lot of things, and I've just learned a lot of lessons. I've learned, one thing that I've always done since day one is I've never haggled with someone about their worth. I've made decisions on whether or not I could afford and want to hire them or not. I've always asked them, what is your rate? How much do you charge?
Okay.
And
so instead of putting a rate out there, and I imagine that's important for remote work too, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to do remote, maybe you just ask them how much they typically charge instead of saying, I'll do $55 an hour. But that might be a lot for somebody, remotely.
Yeah, I've never done that. I've allowed them to set their rates.
Okay.
Because that way they feel like when you pay them what they feel like they're worth, they're happy to go to work and they want to work with you.
That's a great point.
So, and I feel like that's part of probably why I've had a lot of success with working with remote employees, because I do value them, and I don't, ultimately at the end of the day, I can make the decision on whether or not it's a good business decision for our company to pay this person what they're asking
Gotcha.
for.
Yeah, because I know what I was kind of alluding to earlier, and of course we don't need to name names or anything, but you had paid somebody what was average for a U.S. job, right? But then they just took off, right?
Yeah. I'll finish that story because that's definitely where we were going.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
I know. I kind of get long-winded and stuff.
No, that's good.
I feel like I got to give the whole backstory.
Yeah, no, it's good. It adds so much context to. I mean, it's so important for people, particularly since we're talking about hiring things out remotely. I think that's great.
So it was this same person, that I'm talking about that I hired initially, and I hopefully, if he's ever watching this, I still love you. I think you're awesome. I hope you're doing well and your family's doing well. I wished he would have, because he was really a reason why I'm where I'm at today.
Wow.
Because of his skill set. He allowed me to do what you alluded to at the beginning of this call, focus on my genius, which is getting business, client-facing type kind of stuff, as opposed to building websites. I love building websites, but the reality of it is, you know what? I'm not an expert at it. It's a lot of work, and somebody who's a lot more efficient and better can get it done quicker. Gotcha. And that's better at the end of the day for any business. Any business's bottom line. So yeah, 2 years down the road, we're ticking along. Business is growing. Aspen Grove Studios is formed, and this person is a part of Aspen Grove Studios now, and I decided to do what I wanted to do. Well, Corey and I decided what we wanted to do, which was to give, a big bonus. And it was Christmas time. It was December 2015. And, things were going well. And we appreciate our staff. So we gave them what we thought was a really, really awesome month of pay plus bonus, which ended up, unbeknownst to me, this is when I learned my next lesson about global exchange rates and sometimes you can pay too much and it will hurt you, and that's why it's important to know what the value of it is in each individual country. Do some research when you hire someone, because you can pay them too much. I ended up paying them in the month of December, this person in the month of December, the equivalent of a year's salary in their country.
Wow.
And then you're right. I never saw them again. So I don't know if they went to the beach, sipping Mai Tais, decided to retire early. I honestly don't know. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
But, and you know what? They earn the money. They can do whatever they want to do. It's their right, their prerogative, and more power to them. I hope he's super successful today, So, we had to shift gears pretty quickly because he was our back-end development of our company. And we had to, we had just launched a new website, aspengrovestudios.com. All of our products were sold on a third-party marketplace. We had decided to start selling them on our own website, which is why we launched it.
So that's when Aspen Grove went to half client work, half child theme and plugins and things like that.
Yeah, well, we had been in the plugin space because we created the Divi footer editor 6 months prior, and there was such an overwhelming demand for that plugin. We saw it. I thought, oh wow, and then we did a couple of child themes. We recreated the 2.4 elegant themes, child themes, cafe, fashion, those ones that they put out by Kenny Singh that were just stunning, and we didn't sell them. We gave them away for free, and we had 3,500 people download these things.
Wow.
So within a couple of months, we couldn't support it. It wasn't a sustainable model to give 3,500 free, and we were getting pinged left and right.
Oh, sure.
So we, touched base with Elegant Themes and said, hey, look, this is what we're running into. It's getting the product out there. They really love it and stuff, but, we're going to add some premium features to it and fork it, which is, the WordPress way. And, so we added, custom, Divi footer editor into it, custom 404 page, login, customizer to allow you to do all these. So we put all these really cooler stuff, and then we didn't sell them for a price. We allowed people to pay us money, name your own price.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You can download it for free, or you can donate, to help keep this project going.
Gotcha.
To allow us to support it. You know what I mean? So
okay. So at that point, I'm curious about this then, David. So at that point, Aspen Grove Studios is going well. You're doing client work. Right. You're doing child themes. And I imagine at this point, that's when you're really needing to scale, right?
Yeah.
As far as growing your team. So you learned some really good lessons about remote work and kind of what not to do and things that went well. So I imagine you applied that to growing things moving forward. Can you kind of fast forward and just tell us where you're at now with like numbers of employees that you have and kind of, how that's transpired since then?
Okay, let me not lie to you. Let me go in here. I'm going to go into our Slack because that's probably the easiest place to look. Boy, we got a lot of people in our Slack channel, Josh.
Well, maybe kind of a rough estimate. Would you say like have a dozen or so full time?
Well, we have eight. We have 8 full time,
okay.
and we have an additional probably 6 to 7 contract that we keep very busy.
Okay,
they could be dang near full time people, and they may end up full time one day.
Gotcha.
But a lot of their main chunk of their work comes from our company and stuff, and they work.
And is that a lot of support, things like that?
And actually, it's front end, back end developers.
Oh wow!
It's front end and back end developers.
Gotcha.
And yeah, most of those contract are front end, back end. I keep saying I want to get rid of client work and just focus on the product stuff, but we get so much client work, it's really hard to just say no to that revenue stream that we've built up.
Yeah, and I know I was talking to Tim Streifler about that, and we both have the mindset of it's nice to do client work as well, just to keep things real, because I feel like if you get out of the real world, you can very easily get out of touch with what common problems you're solving. Because, all Divi child themes, all Divi plugins are solving a problem. And I know for me, like the child themes that I'm creating and all the layouts and everything that I'm doing leading into this year have all been solutions to my client problems. So that's one pro for me with keeping that.
Yeah, that was how we started. We scratched our own itch. I couldn't believe that nobody had created a simple solution to edit the footer of the Divi theme.
Yeah.
That you had to go into the footer.php, and although it wasn't hard, it was a pain in the butt.
And PHP is scary. It's scary to most. It's scary to me. It's scary to me. I'm sure it's scary to most everybody.
Yeah, so. And then when you're doing it on multiple client sites, it just becomes a knot. So we created a plugin, the footer editor, which used the WordPress WYSIWYG editor. Just like you were creating a blog post. We made it dynamic, allowed it to automatically update. Every year. The year just ticked by, it automatically updated. So, we were scratching our own itch and found out that, a lot of people want to use this thing. So we put it out there for sale. And I want to say that we've probably sold over 10,000 copies of that plugin so far.
Wow.
It's probably closer to 20 now because 10,000 was last year.
Wow. So, I think that's probably good advice for any type of scaling business, no matter what the service is, whether it's a plugin, a child theme, or if you're doing SEO services or web design services for clients, you got to scratch your own itch. So you mentioned Slack. Let's talk practically about maybe some tools that you guys are using. You're managing that many people. Yeah. I imagine you're probably trying to keep off email and random, messages here and there.
We never use email.
Okay. And that's been a very common thing from people I've talked to with multiple teams of more than 2 or 3. So Slack, that's the main one, of course.
That's our communication.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's your central community. And do you have different channels for like Aspen, Divi Space, child themes, plugins, projects, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We have different channels for different actually, we have different channels for different staff members because they're all focused. We don't manage products in Slack. Projects. Sorry.
Okay.
So the projects are actually managed in Asana, and some are managed in Trello.
Okay.
Slack is for communication only. We'll do file sharing and communicating about projects if we have a question, and day-to-day communications done in Slack, which is, a lot. But we do not do like a channel for client A, a channel for client B, a channel for client C.
Slack is internal. Slack is for internal communication.
Slack is for internal communication, and if we create a new Slack channel for a client, we'll name that channel the client's company name.
Gotcha.
So we'll create an entire, and we'll only add the team that's working on that project to that Slack channel.
Now, do you use, because I know Asana has been really popular as well. I use Basecamp, but from what I don't know, I haven't played around with Asana, but I think it's very similar in the way of how you manage projects and how you can communicate with clients. Do you do like due dates with a calendar and stuff on that, or is that what Trello is for as far as assigning? And
no, Asana does that. It's
okay.
Asana is very powerful. Asana is probably, in my opinion, much more powerful than Trello. Trello is we don't use Trello as much as we use Asana. Trello is, we have a couple of clients that just like it, and they're able to have high level to-do lists and
I was going to say it's more
tasks.
of a task manager than anything.
Yeah,
right?
it's a task manager. Mm-hmm. So you're going to move the task from working to review to completed, and the client can follow along in there. You can do that in Asana too, but Asana can be overwhelming on the client side. Okay. When they come in and they look at, holy cow, all the bells and whistles that go in with Asana, because Asana's a full-blown project management, application. I mean, you can set due dates, you can assign, you can track hours, you can do everything you can imagine, as well as a task manager and a to-do list and, each individual projects, and you can assign people to specific projects only, so they can't see, kind of everything that you've got going on and stuff. So, and there's ways to do that. You want to make sure you do that, because I've, like a knucklehead, just added everybody to Asana, and then they could see everything.
Okay. And that's great, because I think of all the people I've talked to, there seems to be a common thread, whether it's Asana, whether it's Basecamp, whether it's Slack. I don't really know of any other central communication other than email or Facebook messaging, and even that's not centralized. If you have a big team, you got to have project management / task management and communication, centralized communication. And it definitely sounds like once you get more than a few people, you're going to have to do, you're going to have to manage all that efficiently, for sure. And I was just going to say, what I'm doing right now is kind of doing that for myself. Even with just my wife working with me and a couple other subcontractors that I have doing some work, I'm kind of on the low end of that, but I'm trying to make that a habit of getting out of email, getting things out of my head, getting things off of paper and actual, to-do lists that people can see and check off. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, the only thing that, the majority of our day is spent in Slack. And really the only time that we go into Asana or Trello is when we complete the tasks that are there. So they're working, we're communicating in Slack, and then once it's completed, it gets completed or moved, whether it's Slack or Trello and stuff. Asana and Trello. So we don't really do any communication in Asana or Trello, even though there's the ability to do that. We do some that is specific to that project. So if you have like a question specific to a task, they may tag me in Asana, hey, does the client want this A, B, C, or D? As opposed to throwing it in Slack, because Slack is going to get buried, over time. Communication just kind of keeps scrolling and stuff. So
now, what do you guys do? Since I can imagine the amount of, you were talking about getting pinged earlier, with support from clients and then support with all the Divi products and everything. Do you guys, what are you using for support for all that?
Well, we use Help Scout. Help Scout is a platform that we use for support, and we have dedicated support people. Now, on the client side of things, it's depending on who's working on that project and stuff. And we don't use Help Scout for that. We do use email with clients. Mm-hmm. So unless we create a Slack channel for them. Okay. Stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds pretty common to where, like, when you're working with working with a client, you put them in Basecamp or Asana, and then you go through there. But then afterwards, if the project's been live for a few months, but they have edits, they just email you, and it's going to be hard to get the average client off of doing that. So I don't know if there's another way about going about that. I had thought about maybe doing a support ticketing system on my In-Transit Studios site and just telling clients, hey, if you need additions or updates or there's an issue, please use this. But I don't know. Maybe I might try that out. I'm not sure.
All right. Yeah. Well, let me know how it goes.
Will do.
I'd be curious.
Now,
go ahead.
How do you guys? And I meant to ask this on some of the other interviews I've done so far, but I forgot. But how do you manage logins with a team that size? Do you guys use like LastPass or a login manager? Sorry about that. I had a little connection issue there, David. So we were talking about passwords, how you manage, your login information with that many people. So you said you use LastPass, is that right?
We do. We use LastPass. Corey and I have a shared LastPass, premium account where we can access equally. Both of us access all of our passwords and stuff. So anytime, they need different passwords for whatever it is they need, we're able to get it to them. Now, as far as like client sites and stuff, each individual employee has different, they have their own username and account and stuff. We don't keep those passwords. We set them up. They have an AspenGroveStudios.com email address. We use Google Apps, for work. So, if something happens, and we've had, attrition over time with employees and stuff. So, all of that's saved, and anything that they do, it's saved in our, the Google Vault and stuff. So everything gets transferred over to myself or Corey if someone leaves the company.
Okay.
So I feel like it's important, some of the things that we learned and stuff that were important. I think Google Apps for Works is fantastic because obviously the world trusts Google's email servers. So you get to brand your own company with Google's Gmail, basically. And what I really like about it is all of the extra benefits that you get from the employee side. It does cost money, $5-10 a month per user, but the $100 a year that you're going to spend or $200 a year in the big scheme of things is really very, very low cost for the value that you get.
Gotcha.
So.
Awesome. Well, that's good. That's good practical advice. And I think, something for any size team could probably use as far as managing passwords if you're off of one machine. So I'm definitely going to look into that to help myself for sure.
Right.
So we've gone over some really good stuff. We've talked about, your experience with starting the businesses and how you started working with folks remotely because you're a digital nomad. So typically I ask if you try to work with people locally, but you're all over. So is it Divi Facebook groups generally? Is it Divi Facebook groups? Let's talk a little bit about kind of how you hired and how you're growing your team. Do you do that through Facebook groups, or are you putting ads out online, or is it just referrals? People.
I have found some in the Divi Facebook groups, but not all. Mm-hmm. I've found some in WordPress Facebook groups. I've found, our lead backend developer. I found an advanced WordPress group. I had a client project that I was working on that we just couldn't get it done in our team, and he came in, was able to solve the problem relatively quickly. I saw that he was, I'm pretty good at evaluating talent and their skill sets and, how efficient they are and whether or not they'd work well with our team and stuff. Mm. And, so him as an example, had a client project, a one-off, and realized that, wait a minute, this guy fit well with our team. He did the project expeditiously. I mean, it was really, really shocked to me. He was more expensive, but because he was so much quicker than other team, people that we have used, it just was not a non-factor.
Gotcha.
So I've picked up people there. I've also picked up staff members from WordCamps, networking, going out to different WordCamps and meeting other people in the WordPress community. We've probably picked up half of our team on the WordCamp side of things.
Wow, that's awesome.
As opposed to the Facebook side of things. So,
and I'm going to test you real quick regarding the Facebook, not marketing, but are you advertising that you have openings, or are you just messaging people individually, or waiting until people message you to see if there's an opportunity?
Looking back on, I advertise, but not in a sense of I'm paying Facebook ads money. There are a couple of groups that Divi Freelancers for Hire, for one example. I posted, our support position, for example, Pablo. We posted a post in there and put out the specifications of what we were looking for and stuff. And I interviewed a bunch of people. And, I knew instantly when I interviewed Pablo that Pablo was the one for us.
Gotcha.
And I just I do all of the interviewing and the hiring for the company. So I just kind of know, whenever I'm talking to them and I'm interviewing them, and because I have a very good high level understanding of our entire business, like I'm not a back end developer. I wouldn't even consider myself a true front end developer because I know CSS. I'm not, PHP, none, I mean, I say I know CSS. I know inspect element is what I know. So I can hack together CSS when needed. So, but I also have a very good understanding and more so on the sales and marketing side.
Gotcha.
So I understand that really well. And then product development on the product side. So I have a very good high level understanding of our entire business, which allows me to assess whether or not they're going to be a good fit for what our needs are and stuff.
Okay.
So,
okay, that's great. That's great. I mean, you're talking about, sounds like, filling in those spots where you don't have the expertise or you don't have the passion for. Because I know recently I've been doing work where I'm like, I have got to start hiring this out. I do not need to be updating print pieces or doing these simple updates that I can definitely have other people do. And it's not that work isn't valuable or needed, but it's just that I need to be focusing on the higher level stuff that I've put myself into that position. That's kind of what I'm working on. But I'm a little terrified, to be completely honest, about putting a job offer out there eventually for a web designer because, running the Divi Web Designers Facebook group, we're up to almost 9,000 members now. Right. I don't want to have to sift through thousands of applications. And I'm sure you have to clear the time out to be able to hire somebody, efficiently, as opposed to getting in a bind and saying, oh, I got to hire somebody quick to get this done. I'm sure, that there's a window there. You need to leave some freedom for you to be able to go through all that. But I'm just very curious about how people have done that because there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's so many different ways you can do it.
Yeah, I like, Skype and then referrals. I mean, our network and our community has grown so much, and our friendship is, I ask them, do you have anybody that's looking for work? I first look internally, people that I know and trust. Who have you used? Is there anybody that you know that needs work or needs, would be a good fit with our team? And they'll usually give me 2 or 3, 4 people, and I may not even have to put an ad out in the Facebook group or wait till a WordCamp or a networking opportunity. I'll have a built-in kind of network of people who, I trust.
Gotcha. Now, do you look for certain personality types or certain skill sets, or do you have anything on for Aspen Grove Studios or any of your sites? Do you have like kind of your mission, vision, and make sure that they align with that? How do you go about that?
Josh, I wish I could tell you why. Yes, Josh, we do. We're that organized, and we've got it. But the reality is we don't. And it's just I'm an intuition guy. I'm a if it feels right, let's give it a try. And it hasn't always worked out, but the majority of the time, it's worked out.
Okay,
we know what our team, personality-wise is and what the flow is of our team and stuff.
Okay.
So,
and I asked that because when I started adding moderators to the Divi Web Designers Facebook group, I only have a few right now, and it's been working out great. What I did was set up a Google Doc with kind of my primary mission of why I started it, what the goals are, who are good members to join, and how to flag spammers and all that stuff. But before they even got to that point, it was kind of like you said, it's intuition and making sure they're active in there, and that you can kind of tell, even by just some people's comments on Facebook, you can tell where their heart is, and you can tell what kind of personality type they have. But that I'm thinking about doing that for myself as well, for my business, is to have, once I have a good feeling about somebody, then to make sure that they align, or if anything, they just know what kind of mindset to be in when they're doing work for me or with me. And I think that's probably a crucial area that I'm going to try to kind of capitalize on before I start hiring out as well.
I will say this. I mean, one thing we do, once we do decide, okay, this person is a good fit for our company, they do have a job description, what they're going to be responsible for, who they're going to be reporting to, what our processes are. So, but as far as like the hiring process and me, it's pretty much my gut,
your deal.
And based on the answers to the questions that I give them, which is different for everyone, I don't have these set answers, interview questions that I answer, because when we go out and look for someone, we're really looking to fill a need in our company, whether it's a back-end developer or an inbound marketer or a front-end developer. So I know specifically what types of things I want to ask them, and then find out about them personally, as well. So
so that's really good advice that we've gone over for team building, for how you're centralizing communication and going over all that. I'm curious, and maybe this is kind of a two-part question, just to kind of backtrack a little bit to get to this point, because I'm sure for most people in my situation, where you're a one-man shop, you just want to take that next level. It's intimidating to think about managing 20, 25 people or whatever. But I'm sure, there's tons of freedom and a lot of fulfillment with all that. But, when you get to that point, my first part of the question is, how do you know when you're ready to scale? And two, do you wait till you have enough money saved up to be able to pay somebody in those positions? Or do you just kind of factor that in when you're proposing and you're charging more to fill somebody's, an extra hand on deck?
Well, I think, first of all, my initial answer to the question is everybody's different. It depends on what your comfort level is, because everybody's different. Some people do want to wait until they have the money before they start scaling. One thing that's very important to me when I hire someone full-time, I mentioned earlier that we have 8 full-time people. We have about 7 that do contract work with us. When I bring them on full time, I know I'm committing that, okay, this person's livelihood is dependent on this job, and I need to make sure that we have the revenue and can sustain their livelihood for an extended period of time, 6, 12 months. So it's not something that is taken very lightly. So everybody's going to be a little bit different, okay? And I'm kind of giving you my experience and what I do and what's important to me. What's important to me is if it works out and stuff, is that they don't have to worry about, whether or not, it's clients are going to come or we're going to have work next week and stuff. Mm-hmm. When I hire someone, I know we're going to have enough revenue coming in to, if we did not get another sale or another project for 6, 12 months, they would still have a job and we could still keep working, if that makes sense.
And you're looking at revenue as far as kind of like cash flow from the business standpoint too, right? It's not necessarily, okay, I have $50,000 saved up, I can hire somebody for a year. You're looking at, what's coming in and what's been projected, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. We do projections and stuff for the year, and we do it moderately. We don't we don't even do it realistically. We do it very conservatively. Okay. Here's our conservative projection, here's our realistic projection, and here's our optimistic projections, and we do all three, and typically we base our budgets off of conservative. Mm-hmm. So that's just how we do it. I think it's never, my own personal opinion, to answer your question, it's never too early to scale. Because of the fact that, hell, you heard my story. You see what global exchange rates are. There are talented people in the world that I hate to say it, but they're much more talented than me. They're much more talented than you, Josh, and what gives them a very, very, very comfortable living in their country is not even close to what we need here in the U.S. Sure. So that allows you to, in my opinion, scale quickly. Now, finding the people, that's another thing in and of itself. So,
would you recommend going? Because right now I'm doing subcontractors, basically 1099, as needed. Is that kind of where you recommend starting? And then,
yeah, I would.
It sounds with Corey. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When you got with Corey, did he start out that way, or was it more of a part-time and then escalated to a full-time position pretty quickly?
You mean my partner, Corey?
Yeah.
No, Corey had his own business. He had Timber Ridge Media. He had his own web development company that was successful. I had my own web development company, Davcom Digital, and I went to Corey. Corey and I were friends, and we got to know each other, and we were helping each other out on different projects and stuff. And I was encouraging him because I had gotten involved in launching the original Divi marketplace. And I saw what the potential was, so I was encouraging all of my friends, go make products. This is going to be a real thing. I think it's going to be huge long term. Go make some child themes, make some plugins. Corey wasn't moving fast enough for me, so I said, well, hell, we're going to do it together.
Gotcha.
I'll do it with you, and we'll go, and we'll create products and stuff. So we were 50-50, 100%, but we were still running our own businesses.
Oh,
we had our own client side, Timberidge Media for him, Davcom Digital for me, for 6 months, and we had our Aspen Grove Studios products as a total separate entity.
Gotcha.
At the end of that 6 months, I went, the crazy entrepreneur that I am, I went to my wife and I said, honey, I really feel like these products are going to be great. My wife's a CPA, so she had, she's solid, stable income, and I said, look, this is what I want to do. I really think these products are going to be really, really good for us, but it's hard for me to focus on clients and the products. What I want to do is I want to give away half of all the income that I bring in for nothing, give it away to Aspen Grove Studios and Corey so that I could utilize our staff and I could focus on building up the product side of the business.
Gotcha.
So, and I talked to Corey about it. I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. And I told my wife, I said, look, I'm not going to aggressively seek any new clients so I could bring in $0 potentially. And you have to be, are you okay with that? And she said, sure, go for it. Let's see what we can do. I can tell you for us personally, it was our best quarter on the client side ever.
Gotcha.
I mean, I never reached out. More clients just kept coming in. It was really insane how much work we ended up having.
So
and Corey,
and you assessed the situation, you kind of looked at the risk, and I guess that's a good lesson there. You looked at the risk, you assessed, what could potentially go wrong, and then you accepted that to say, like, here's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, here's the worst case scenario, honey. I might not bring in any income for the next 90 days, the first quarter of 2000 and at the time 16. And I don't think that's going to happen. I knew what my business was doing. I knew how much referral work we got, and I didn't feel like that's what was going to happen. But I needed her to know that was the risk. We could potentially bring in $0.
So as long as you're cool with the risk, go for it, right? I mean, that's kind of how I figure.
Yeah, and she was like, okay, she said, sure. And at the same time, when I told Corey my idea, I said, look, I really feel like our product side of our business is going to be huge. I'm going to give our product company all of my web clients. You're going to get 50% of it, I want to use our team, and because I want to focus 100% of my efforts on building up the product side. And Corey said, well, I'm in, man. Let's just, so we merged companies. We deprecated Davcom, deprecated Timberidge Media, forwarded all of that business into Aspen Grove Studios.
And the reason I asked about Corey in more detail is because I know it's hard to keep subcontractors happy when the work is sporadic, the work is potentially cheap for them. Like, I don't want to hand off the crappy work that I don't want to do to somebody and pay them barely any money, and I'm not expecting them to be thrilled with that work, So that's kind of, I'm trying to change my mindset from that to say, like, okay, are there some areas where I can get somebody going and empower them, and more importantly, leave some room for them to grow and to come alongside me in this and kind of make it their own? And that's kind of what I got from what you just said with Corey is, you had different skill sets, complementary, areas that you could probably help each other with. And then, he's able to take that together, and it's certainly become something really awesome for, I'm sure, your clients, but also in the Divi community.
Yeah. And Corey and I were full-blown business partners legally for 14 months before we ever met personally in face-to-face.
Oh, okay.
So, we knew well enough, online friends are real friends, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
You know this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and I had that
people,
experience meeting everyone at WordCamp, last month.
yeah,
Was, you meet people online, you're talking, then you meet them face to face, and there's nothing
right.
cooler.
Yeah. So, we, Corey and I have been like a perfect match made in heaven. We're like, he's, or he or I am the yin to each other's yang.
Mm-hmm.
He tempers me really well. I'm definitely the out of the box entrepreneur, juggling 50 things at one time, can multitask and manage all kinds of stuff. Corey is very check things off,
Yeah.
Got this done, check it off. Go to the next thing, check it off, which is great. He's very calm. He's logical, which helps me because I'm, I'm wide open.
That's great. And I relate more to you because when the work that I do with my wife, she does more administrative work for the business and ordering print designs and things like that. She doesn't actually do much web unless there's, text edits and things like that. But for her, she's very task oriented and she likes to-do lists. Whereas me, I almost feel like they're a waste of time, which is not good in the scaling. Right? Like right now, I'd rather just do it. I'm like, okay, here's what I need to do. I'm just going to do it. And I might get things done 3 times as fast, but there's no record of that. And then if I invoice the client, I'm like, oh shoot, what did I do? I kind of forget. So I know that's a good, there's a good compliment there for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so David, we've gone over some awesome stuff in this talk, man. We've covered some really good things with your story and how you got started. And you have one of the most impressive web design stories, I think, from just working with remote teams and how you're managing different people. Of course, I'm on Divi Chat now with you and you're running, you started something really cool with that. And I know you've got some cool stuff in the future. Before we get into some final thoughts and things like that, I did want to ask you, we've talked a lot about the good stuff, but what are some of the struggles that you have with scaling businesses like this?
Well, I've talked about all the great experiences that I've had, but we've had some lemons as well. We've hired people, and part of the struggle is, of not having a deep understanding of what's needed to achieve tasks, skill sets. So like not being a back-end developer, you kind of have to take a risk and take gamble and hire somebody. And even though they may be able to do the job and they're performing the job, what I've learned is they may not be the best person for the job because just because someone can complete a project doesn't mean that they're doing the project in the best way it should be done, and B, the most efficiently and time saving. So I'll give you a perfect example of when I met Jonathan, our lead back-end developer. We had a problem with an e-commerce website. Our full-time back-end developer who was on staff, had been working on this problem for 30 days and hadn't been able to solve it. And, he would take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And then I said, well, let me see if I can get you some help. Let me reach out. I went into Advanced WordPress, posted a message. Hey, look, we're struggling here. Can anybody help? Jonathan private messaged me. I hired him to come in, and within 2 hours, he fixed the problem. Here's somebody that had been working 30 days, and somebody came in a couple of hours and finished and fixed it. And I thought, holy cow, all right, well, do you have any available time outside of what you just did? Yes. Here's how much. This is what I can allocate. I'll take it.
Gotcha.
So I put him on our, at the time we had created Ghoster, which is our number 1 selling product. Still today, Ghoster is the best selling product that we have. And, that product was very complex, and the same developer that I'm speaking about, had been working for months on these bugs that were in the product, and we just couldn't get it. So I put Jonathan on the product. I said, hey, you helped us over here. Can you help us over here? And hold on a second, Josh.
Oh, you're fine.
knocking at my door. I think it's my grandson, but he ran away. He must be knocking and running. Remember we used to do that when we were kids? So I put Jonathan on it, and Jonathan literally solved the problem that we had been working on for months and months and months.
Wow.
And in the first week, in like 5 hours. And I was like, okay, and that was my lack of understanding of, evaluating high-level talent people. So
Gotcha.
Even though I was willing to take risk and I was willing to throw money out there and I was willing to work with people from around the world, I didn't have a full understanding of, now that I'm several years down the road and I've done it quite a bit more, I've learned a lot of lessons and stuff. So those were definitely drawbacks for me.
Okay.
That's
good, though.
Exchange,
that's a really good point. like, evaluating somebody, not to come in and say like you're terrible and this and this, but it's just a matter of like if somebody for me, like if somebody can work with PHP, I'm cool with that. I know that's not where my strengths lie, so I'd rather do what I do best. It sounds like it's evaluating strengths and weaknesses and just making sure people are in the right places. And I imagine they feel more fulfilled too. I'm sure somebody who can knock out a problem in 2 hours as opposed to spending on a month on it is going to feel much better about themselves as well.
Well, and we wasted, honestly, we wasted thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars over an 8-month period, because I did not have the full understanding of, what all went into that. And since then, and working with people who truly have that skill set, even though this person, Jonathan, was, from Canada and was 10 times the cost of the other person, literally.
Oh, okay.
His rates were U.S. rates.
Gotcha.
I mean, it was a back-end developer, very expensive, which, oh my God, can we commit to somebody? Mm-hmm. Holy cow, X amount of dollars an hour, which was a lot of money, scared the ever-living crap out of me. But when I realized that, oh, wow, he's charging that much, but man, he gets it done in 5 hours.
Yeah, if you're worth it. Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, okay, well, this is a no-brainer, because I could then, because I was looking at, holy cow, I spent thousands of dollars over here over 8 months, what's it going to cost me with somebody that's 10 times that much,
Sure. Yeah.
So that was just a huge, huge learning lesson and stuff, that don't be scared of the price tag if they know what they're doing, because they're going to be so efficient. They're going to be so much better than, the lower, feed people and stuff. So
that's great. That's a good quote. I'll make sure I include that for sure. Yeah. Don't be afraid of the price tag if they know what they're doing. Yeah, for sure.
That's right. Don't be afraid of it. Yeah.
Well, on quotes and all that good stuff, David, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today, man. Do you have any, just maybe to kind of sum up, any final scaling tips or anything you wanted to hit before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I think, WordPress is a phenomenal platform. Divi is, obviously, you and I are in the Divi community. It's our niche. It is growing. WordPress is growing. Gutenberg's coming out. We've got a lot of super exciting things coming in WordPress and Divi. It's never too late. I know a lot of people are concerned with, I missed the boat. These Facebook groups are so big now. I shouldn't even try. I need to find something new and fledgling that, kind of be in the same spot I was in the first 20 and stuff. And Tim Streifler, you mentioned Tim, perfect example. Tim didn't come into the Divi community for a year and a half after it was thriving. And boom, he came in, he was helpful, to people, and his business has just exploded, because of that. Josh, you're a perfect example of that. You came in, you didn't even know there were 50 other Facebook groups and stuff. And, and you were, so don't be afraid to get involved. Come hang out with us. Come say hi. Come join Divi Web Designers Facebook group, one of my favorite Facebook groups now. So, I don't participate as much in the Facebook groups as I used to in the beginning, the first 2 years, because there's 100,000 people in those groups. They get to those questions way faster than I do. And plus, I'm trying to help in a different way now than I was back
for
then.
multiple ways, right? For multiple,
Right.
I mean, there's so many good things about being in a Facebook group, and as it pertains to scaling your business, because
Right.
you're getting free support, you're getting help, you're getting inspiration, encouragement. You could potentially
Right.
find people to work with. I
Right.
mean, there's so many pros about
Yeah.
being in a group.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's it. Just my final tip is, don't be afraid. Don't think you're too late. Come on in and join us. The water's just fine. There's plenty of room. The world's a big place, and the pie's big, and there's lots enough to go around for everybody.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome, David. Well, thank you so much for talking and giving some of your expertise and your
Hey.
experience. This is going to be awesome. I think it's going to help a lot of people out, and we're looking forward to maybe doing another one sometime here soon.
hey, thanks so much for having me, Josh. It was my pleasure. I hope it does help a lot of people.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
All right. Talk to you soon.